Welcome everyone to the 7th episode of the Smart Water Mentorship Program. This is an initiative led by the SWAN Forum and RiSWP, which is the Rising Smart Water Professionals. My name is Sapir and I lead the operations and ecosystem for the SWAN Forum, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. So SWAN is the leading global hub for the smart water and wastewater sectors. We bring together utility solution providers, academics, industry experts, researchers, the full spectrum of the water sector, interested in exploring data-driven and digital solutions for water. We hold multiple events throughout the year, as well as produce exclusive content and opportunities for networking. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit our website. But we're really excited to announce that we just started a new online course for digital twins called Demystifying Digital Twins. This is in partnership with Gigi Karmas-Edwards, who is the leading authority on the topic, as well as Julius Education. And this is a go at your own pace kind of course. It's 1.5 to 2 hours, but you can take your time. The goal here is to break down the components of digital twin technology and to break the assumptions of what that actually means, as well as provide you with use cases to really understand the business value. So if you're interested in exploring more details are available on our website. I'm also happy to share that we're exploring a discount code for young professionals. So if you are interested in this course, which would be approximately 50% off, please email me as soon as you can. I think Emma is dropping my email address in the chat box, so you can reach out to me and we'll try to get that as soon as possible to you as well. And with that, I'll hand it over to Rudy to tell you a little bit more about this program.
Thanks, Sophia, and welcome everybody to our 7th episode of this Smart Water Mentorship Program. This mentorship series of interviews is really based on a bit of inspiration from Tim Ferriss's Tribe of Mentors. He went and interviewed an enormous number of people, I think almost 150 people, with the same set of questions to really build up a library of resources and career advice for people. And some of this advice that you hear today may resonate with you now, but we're also recording these episodes and they will form a library so that maybe in a few years' time, a different piece of advice is going to resonate with you in a different time of your career. And I think it's very important in our smart water sector, which is a new and developing sector, to have this type of mentorship and guidance. So this has all been launched by our team, Rising Smart Water Professionals. You can see the leadership team there on the slide. We've got Emma, Lisa, myself, and Jessica. We've also just been joined by 16 ambassadors, and this is going to give them opportunities to do similar events on a local space, and that's why we actually have 2 of our ambassadors today helping run this session. So Amrita is going to take the lead with our main interview questions, and Lanesha is going to be helping out with your audience questions. So this is an interactive event. We do welcome your questions. Please do post them in the chat, and Lanesha will make sure that they do get answered either in the session or on our LinkedIn page afterwards. These are the recordings from our past events, and they are available on our RiSWP webpage, so do check that out. And now I'd like to introduce you to today's mentor. Today's mentor is Aaron McGarvey. He's a data scientist and project manager at American Water, which is the largest publicly traded water and wastewater utility in the US. He uses software engineering and data science to help solve practical problems facing water utilities today. His key achievements include the construction of an anomaly detection model for detecting contamination events in raw water, and the composition of a web scraper for scraping water quality compliance data from government websites. Aaron is a Python expert in all the commonly used data science libraries. He has a master's degree in hydrogeology from the University of Pennsylvania. Aaron is also a husband and a proud dad of a 3-year-old. He loves exploring the outdoors near his new home in beautiful Bucks County, Pennsylvania, right outside Philadelphia with his son. He also loves to travel and volunteer internationally, read, and make new friends. So please welcome Aaron McGarvey. And now I'm going to hand over. And I'm going to hand over to Amrita to get us started with a few icebreaker questions, just to get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you, Rudy. I'd like to welcome our guest today, Aaron. I'd like to jump directly to the icebreaker question, rapid fire question here. Please answer briefly the first thing that comes to your mind with this words or question. So the first one is smart water.
Smart water is, right?
Yes.
Smart water is, so to me, smart water is three things. I think about smart water in terms of people, process, and technology. So those three things together are kind of what defines smart water for me.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is, what do people often get wrong about you?
So I think not a lot of people know that before I got into data, I was actually a liberal arts. I studied English literature a lifetime ago in undergraduate degree. So not a lot of people know that. And if there's anyone out there that's watching, I just want to let you know that, sometimes careers do not go in a straight line. So, but anyway, that's something that I think a lot of people get wrong about me, is they don't know that I actually just read books in my undergraduate degree. So
interesting. So another one of your favorite books.
Yeah, so speaking of books, I knew you were going to ask that question, and I went through all of my old stuff, and it has absolutely nothing to do with data science at all, or water. But I found this book, it's called Franny and Zoe, in my old library. And if you're familiar with J.D. Salinger, he is most famous for Catcher in the Rye. But Franny and Zoe it's a novella. It's a short novel about two siblings, and mainly it's about their conversations that they have in their adolescence, and they're trying to sort out their meaning and their purpose in the world. So definitely a book that has impacted me a lot.
Wonderful. And the next one, must have part of your typical workday?
Oh, it's an easy one. So every day starts with a cup of coffee for me.
Nice. And what's on your nightstand?
The only thing that's on my nightstand is a glass of water. I believe in, disengaging, disconnecting. I think when you go to bed at night, you should be able to not think about work or anything else. So I try to avoid, having my computer or my phone close by. So yeah, just a glass of water, and that's it.
Yeah, that's important, right? So night snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that brings you true joy.
Sure. So my 3-year-old will sometimes break out into spontaneous laughter. If we're lucky here, we might even get to hear him, but he has such a joy about the world that children have. So, in the middle of my workday, sometimes he interrupts me, and that's a great joy for me when he does that.
Oh, that's so nice. And our final rapid fire question is your latest curiosity?
Yeah, so my latest curiosity is, I'd say, I've gotten into JavaScript programming, which if you're not familiar with JavaScript, it's a programming language that is geared towards the web. I originally learned, Python was my kind of language of choice, and it's the language that's most commonly used in data science. But I've gotten really interested in building data visualizations for the web and actually applications for the web. And you can't really do that without JavaScript. So that's kind of been my latest rabbit hole or fascination, is learning different JavaScript libraries.
That's great. So here we have finished asking you the rapid fire questions, but we would like to encourage all our audience to put forward their questions in chat box. By this time, we'd also like to ask some questions, interview questions from our side. So here I go with the first question, and the question is, are there any significant people or events that helped to get you to where you are now in your career as a smart water professional?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if anybody that is working in the water industry doesn't have anyone that has helped them in some way. But I'll share an example. So in graduate school, I had a professor who was he had an environmental science background, but he actually taught math. And I think there's this conception out there that, you always hear people that they don't really like, some people don't like math. Generally, I find that that's because maybe they did not have a good teacher. This professor was extremely brilliant and extremely smart, but you would never know it. He was the most humble guy in the entire world. And he knew how to explain concepts in a way that people could understand. His name was Carl Mastropalo, and he's actually still there, I believe, at the University of Pennsylvania in the Environmental Science Department. And he really, he was the one who kind of made me curious and interested in math, which is ultimately kind of what led me towards Python and computer programming and all these other things that kind of branched off of that. So yeah, he's one. I've had many others, people that I work with now, bosses that have mentored me, colleagues, friends. But yeah, Carl Mastropalo is a great one.
Thank you, Aaron. That's fantastic. So I'd like to give the stage to Lenisa now for the audience question.
Thank you for that. We do have a few questions. The first one is from, I might be getting the name wrong, but I'm going to try, Soundarajan in India. And he asks, as a water resource engineer, what should I learn to become a data scientist?
So the thing that I always recommend people to start is definitely start with Python. There are a million different job descriptions of what data scientists actually do, but the thing that they all have in common is that you're going to involve some type of math and some type of programming at some point. Now, typically, if you're coming from an engineering background, right, you're already going to have some math. But engineers may or may not have programming experience. So learning Python is a skill that will serve you extremely well, and that's typically where I recommend that when people start.
Thank you, Aaron. So here we'd like to go with another question from our side, and it is, what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? So could it be an investment of money, time, energy, etc.?
Yeah, so I would say the same thing. So like learning when I was in graduate school, learning Python was one of the best decisions that I made, and the best investments that I made of my time. Was definitely struggling with it's very hard to learn programming if you've never done it before. It can be very challenging, but sticking with it and learning to really master it, it has paid off for me in a lot of different ways.
Linus, thank you, Aaron. So Linus, I would like to go with another question from audience.
No problem. Actually, this is one from Sapir. It's a statement and a question. There are often time expectations and assumptions about liberal arts backgrounds. What was the transition from your English literature degree to a data science profession like?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Sapir. So when I was a kid, or when I was young, I would say, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I was just a curious person who I enjoyed learning. So the problem was kind of I graduated with a degree in liberal arts, and I couldn't, I couldn't find a job. I mean, it's something as simple as that. Or I should say I couldn't find a job doing something that I liked. It was only when I met, so I did some international volunteering, and I met in Central America, I met actually a hydrogeologist who was helping some communities get access to clean water. So that kind of sparked the water interest. And then I kind of realized, about that time that I wanted to do something in the sciences, and then I got into water. So I went back to school, to graduate school, to Penn, which led to, the experience that I already shared with that professor, which led to Python, which led to being hired out of grad school at American Water, to now 3 years later, basically where I am now. So it's sort of like small steps, and realizing for me it's also like a personal discovery journey of realizing who I am and what I really like to do and what I'm skilled at and where I can make a difference in the world. So it was all of those things combined.
Quite motivating.
Hope that answers your question. And if anyone, and again, I'll say this, this program is organized around mentorship, which I think is so awesome, but there's no limits to, don't let, if you're studying something else, or if you have a degree in this or that, don't be discouraged if you want to take a step out into the unknown and you want to pursue something new. I'd say just go for it.
Very truly said. Thank you so much, Aaron. So the next question is, what's the most important leadership lesson you've learned, and how has it proven invaluable?
So the most important leadership lesson for me is the difficult task, at least for me, of emotional intelligence. And for anyone who doesn't know, emotional intelligence is kind of like, it's partly like compassion, partly like being able to see the world through someone else's eyes, or, we say the phrase like walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I didn't always do that well. I didn't always do that well in my career, and I made some mistakes, and I had to learn from some mentors that I needed to listen first, right? So that was a challenging lesson for me to learn, but it's one that I very much appreciate, and I've learned from that experience, and I consider it the most important thing with any leader. Is their ability to be cognizant of what other people are going through. So
yeah, that's so special. Actually, I personally can relate to that so much and really value to that thing that you said. Thank you so much. So I think I will go with another question and can give it to Lenisa afterwards. So Aaron, again, the question from my side, from our team is, what advice would you give to a smart, driven, inspired, rising professional or graduate about to enter the smart water world? Is there any bad advice that they should ignore?
Yeah, so the best advice that I can give to people is if you're interested in digital transformation, right, which I assume you are in some degree because you're all here part of SWAN. But if you're interested in sort of being a part of this great transformation that's happening in this industry, my advice to you is, number one, get to know the people that are doing the jobs right now, because they are the ones that ultimately, they have those years of experience. So for example, in my case, getting to know someone who is a water quality supervisor or water quality sampler, someone who is actually out there sampling our water, or someone who's a treatment plant operator, someone who's actually operating the treatment plant, or actually replacing pipe, because if you want to be a part of that digital transformation, it's critical that you understand some of the things that those people do, because you never, in my experience, you're not going to understand the problems. And if we talk about like a solution, for example, if you're going to build a solution for something, you have to understand the problem first, right? And you can't understand the problem unless you really are willing to build those relationships and make those commitments with people, which is a really long-term process. It's a long-term commitment. And it's something that's outside the realm of maybe what a data scientist job description is, right? But at the end of the day, it's about what is your goal. If your goal is digital transformation, then your job, you have to accept, I think, that your job may not fit into some box or lines, and at some point you're going to have to be different things to different people. So second part of the question, is there any bad advice? If you hear people say things like, we've always done it this way, or I'm not willing to try anything new, those are things that you can respectfully ignore.
Very well said, Aaron. So up to you, Lenisa, now with the audience question.
I like the fact it leads into this whole dichotomy of AI and EI, the perception that AI can't include EI, which is very interesting. All right, so we have a question from Malak, who is a fellow ambassador. If Malak would like to unmute herself and ask the question, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. I'm Malak. I'm head of technical support unit at Jordan Water Company. I just want to ask about if a utility is moving towards using the smart technologies like artificial intelligence for its first time. What is the steps and hints and advices from your side just to get that project succeeded, and to get the results, the optimal results?
Yeah, it's a great question. So typically, I would say that the world of water utility operations and research have been kind of separate. However, if we're talking about succeeding, if you have, let's say you work for a water utility and you have an AI project or machine learning something or other that you wish to deploy at your water utility, it really has to come from the end user first, right? So let's say you're trying to, maybe your project is water treatment optimization, right? Maybe you have a model for optimizing treatment that you want to deploy in your system. Some people, some data scientists would just build the model and then maybe they build an app, and then they would go to those water treatment operators and they would say, here you go, here's your tool. Well, that doesn't really work well in the water industry. You have to get engagement from those end users first from the beginning, right? So it's a different conversation when you go to them first and you listen to them first and you say, tell me about your problems. And then they'll say something like, well, we have all these chemicals that are very expensive and we think that there's a better way to use them. And then it's coming from them, right? It's different when it's coming from them, where they articulate the problem, and then you say, okay, let's see if we can build something to help with that. That's a lot different than trying to imagine if I, for example, if I think I know what their problem is, and then I go and I build something and I give it to them, what's going to happen is they're going to say, that's not really the problem. And sometimes that happens where I think data folks tend to sort of underestimate the complexity of the business process. So if to answer your question, Malak, if you want it to succeed, I would start with the people that you're trying to help. Start with them first, and then kind of identify the problem. And once you identify the problem, then get your data scientists together, or whoever it is that's building your model, and then kind of develop a process of feedback to say, hey, we've done this. Is this what you want? And they may say yes, and they may say no, we actually want it to do this. So then you have a feedback loop that allows you to make your product better. And the people that you're working with have ownership and they're stakeholders in the process. So hopefully that makes sense.
Absolutely, Aaron, you've made it very clear from the process, right from there, from finding the problems to the root causes to the processes afterwards. Thank you so much. So the next question is, it is more, somehow similar to the first one, but somehow I think you've got some more addition to this one. So here it goes. Do you have a mentor, or have you ever had a mentor? If so, what role did they play in your career? Were they older or younger than you? Like, how do you describe on these questions?
Sure. I've had many mentors, but my boss, my previous boss, his name is Mitch Stauffer. He was and is a great mentor to me. Anyone who meets him knows that he has a very specific communication style, and he's able to ask people very specific questions that sort of uncover what the core, issue is. And then he's very skilled at being able to build a solution that matches the problem exactly. He's not, interestingly enough, he's not a technical person. He's not a data scientist at all. But what he's skilled at, he actually has a process excellence background. But what he's so skilled at is being able to uncover those questions and structure your problem in the right way, which as a data scientist, if you want to actually have your work adopted, you have to be able to structure your problem in the right way. So he was and still is a great mentor, and he's older than me.
Great. Actually, yeah, this topic is very important for us as we are conducting mentorship session with you. And yeah, so we are being really inspired by your experiences. So we look forward to asking more questions after this session as well. But here goes another question with you in this session directly. And it is, what is your next big career goal? Or where are you hoping to take your career next in the next label? What advice would you give your mentee if they have this goal?
So I guess my short, I call it my short to intermediate term goal is to be able to provide full, I guess you could say, full service digital solutions. I want to be able to build my own app. I want to be able to design them, code them, test them, deploy them. I want to be able to build the models, test the models, deploy the models, build the back end, build the front end, maintain the databases, all of that stuff. It's a lot of stuff, right? I want to be able to do that, all of that, and I want to understand everything about. I want to get better at my understanding of the water treatment process. So I have like these two parallel paths. I kind of consider the two different domains. There's the domain of data science, and then there's the domain of water. I want to get to be a complete expert in all things in both of them, right? Because I believe that that's where I can make the most difference. In the long term, I want to go back to later on in my life. I would love to go back to volunteering, right? I'm really interested in helping solve some of these problems that everybody faces today. With we still have over 2 billion people that don't even have access to clean water, right? So here we're talking about these things here in the U.S. that we take for granted, but I want to be able to help people in other ways, maybe people who can't necessarily afford to pay or otherwise get the help that they need. There's utilities all over the world that desperately need people to help them with their data, but they may not be able to. They may not exactly know what they need, or they may not know how to ask. They may not know what to ask for, or they may not be able to pay someone like a data scientist, have that person on their staff. So I think in the long term, I'd love to work internationally again, and maybe give back in some way.
Great. Thanks for clarifying it in a very descriptive way. So here we would like to go again with the audience question. So I think Billy has asked question. Larissa, you can go forward.
Okay, I'm going to ask for 2 questions. The first is by Vito Garanda, and he asked a question around programming resources. I'm going to ask him if he could unmute himself and just elaborate on his question. Vito?
Yes, yes, I'm here. Sorry if I get the exact question wrong. I know I asked it a couple weeks ago, I believe, but it was mainly just focused around transitioning some of the knowledge that individuals may have in programming or Python specifically, and how that can translate to use in the water industry.
Yeah, so there's data everywhere. So are you asking, Vito, like how you can use Python in the water industry?
Yeah,
Or-
that's a good question. Or ways you go about it.
Yeah, so like a typical job, like something for me, right? It might be like, say, for example, building a model to detect changes in water quality from sensors, right? That's a use case. There are many other use cases. Some of them are not very like exciting, right? Some of them are just for things like cleaning data. And we have to kind of get over this perception that data scientists are just building models all day. I think there's all these other things that have to be in place before that happens. But there are a million ways to use, if you are good with data and you're good with programming, there are a million ways in which I guarantee you, if you work for a water utility, there are people that will give you things to do. Put it that way. It may not be the shiny like R&D stuff, right? Because it's not always what people think, right? But there's so much data out there that has potential to be that, if you're willing to sort of help clean it and help massage it and get it in the right format. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that. And to your point, I know cleaning of data is not always the most fun task, but it is very valuable. So good point.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So Billy is one of my fellow ambassadors as well. And he has a question for you. If he could unmute himself and ask it, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my question is really about, when you were being introduced, Aaron, I talked about a couple of your sort of research interests or projects that you were working on. And there's mention of event detection, anomaly detection for, in particular, rural water systems. But, I'm really interested in, I guess, that sort of space for whether it's in the treatment plant, in the distribution system, rural, urban. It just seems like something that a lot of people care about. A very difficult problem. I know there's programs out there like Canary that came out after 9/11. Seems like there's a lot of good things in there, but it hasn't necessarily been widely used or just not that flexible. So yeah, I'm just really interested in like, what's the state of the art there, both for event detection algorithms, but also for building sensor networks in a way that you can build this event detection system?
Yeah, great question. And I know, So I was involved with a research project that looked at a lot of these sensors and looked at their ability to detect contaminants in raw water. The problem and the challenge in raw water is it's highly variable, right? So if you're talking finished water, there's not much change in like turbidity or anything like that. But if you're in raw water, it's going to be, you have seasonality, you have a big thing that people care about is what we call O&M, operations and maintenance. If there are probes that have to be cleaned every week, what happens to data when someone's cleaning it? Now, I will say that the technology is getting better, right? The manufacturers, the people that make these sensors know what they need to do. But I would say that the state, if you think about it in terms of the state of the technology itself, there's been a lot poured into the R&D space, and there's so many papers out there. But what's lacking is really like the software front end user side, right? Someone needs to be able to design something that's actually user friendly, and that people, again, that going back to Malak's question, someone needs to design something with the end user in mind. And that's really what's lacking. There's tons of models, you know, Canary, even, you know, different sensor manufacturers have different models, proprietary ones. We built one, but the challenge really is the implementation and the adoption of that.
Great, thanks, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for explaining all the questions in a very well structured manner. So here we go with our question from our team. And the question is, what is your, actually, this is the question we can ask in a general mode. So what is your favorite question to ask in an interview? How would you answer it? So you can just describe it in your full freedom.
Sure. So I like to give people a problem, a real problem, and I like to look at their process for solving that problem. So my favorite question or my favorite thing to do is pick a real problem. Maybe it's something that maybe it's a problem that I had or one of my colleagues had, and give that to the interviewee and ask them, you know, how would you approach solving this problem? There's no right or wrong answer, but it's more, you know, it's like, it's not what you think, right? It's how you think, you know, and you go through the process of I'm given a problem. I may not even know where to start, but you know, you give someone a problem to solve that reveals, you know, just how they approach the world and how they think about solving a problem that they're likely to face in the job.
Great. So I think we have got a few more questions from audience. Vanessa, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, we have a question from Lou. If Lou could unmute him or herself, and please ask the question. Lou Singh.
Hi, hello. This is Lu. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Texas, Austin, working on smart water distribution system. And I'm actually graduating in August. So when I'm looking for a job, I'm kind of, you know, wondering. So there are like water jobs and smart water jobs. But some water job, I feel when you go into it, maybe it will turn into a smart water job if you have the, you know, skill set for that. So I'm wondering, when you go into this job in the beginning, do you know for sure it's going to be smart water, or you just know it's a water job and just, you know, do what you can there?
And they are, I'd say, more and more investing in people with those skills, just like every other industry is, where you're applying. And look at the culture and look at the people that are there, right? Are they people that you want to work with? Are they doing the things that you want to do? Are they going to give you the recognition that you want? And are they going to, you know, are they going to, is it actually what you want, or is it just something else, right? That's a decision that you have to make. I'd say there's, in my experience, there's utilities at all different levels of the spectrum in terms of innovation. But that's something that I will say is, I mean, the cat is out of the bag, right? And utilities want people with data skills, even if they don't recognize necessarily that they want a data scientist. They want people who can help them with their data, and they need that, because the amount of data that they're producing is just blowing up.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. This makes a lot of sense. And actually, may I add on a bit more for another question?
If you'd like to ask more questions, yeah.
Yeah, may I?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sure.
I have a question on the other side, the academia side. So as you just talked about, you feel there is a gap between academia and the industry in terms of smart water. And I'm a kind of, in the process of publishing paper in anomaly detection in terms of leak. So I'm wondering, how do you see this gap can be bridged?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one of my biggest challenges too. So there is probably an organizational structure that may need to be changed. There's an article for anyone who's interested in this topic. There's an article put out by MIT SWAN about why so many data science projects fail, because there's a high failure rate with data science projects. And just for anyone out there that is maybe off in the clouds, that's something that you need to recognize, right? A lot of data science projects don't ultimately end up getting adopted. And the question is why? I think that there needs to be a better bridge between something like academia and the utility, and the main core functions of the utility. The cultures are very different. In a water utility and the core operations, the focus is on avoiding any surprises. You are operating under, at least here in the US, very strict compliance requirements that you have to meet. So your ability to take risk is, with certain things, your ability to take risk is lower. On the other hand, in academia, you can research something and you can publish it, but it's ultimately up to someone else to implement it. It's somebody at the utility that's going to make the decision. Hey, we want to use this model, we want to use this product or this app or whatever. So I think that there needs to be a bridge built between those two worlds, and it can be a challenge because, as I said, they're very different cultures, and they don't always get along, and there's some tension inherent in that. But I think building that bridge would allow more data science projects to succeed.
Great, Aaron. It has been a lovely session, but we've already come fast, almost to the end of the session. So I think we can take maximum 1 or 2 questions more, isn't it, Rudy? So I think, Lenissa, you can cross-check more with the audience questions if there is any pressing ones. Else we can go forward to the closing.
Oh, I think we just have one more question, and it comes from Emma. So Emma, do you want to give it a go?
Yeah, I think it's just interesting to also hear your thoughts on this, because as someone with a very marketable, highly valuable skill set of data science, we all know that the water sector is struggling to attract and retain talent such as yourself. So what would you say to water utilities who are looking to find employees such as yourself and bring in that talent into their workplaces?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, right? It takes commitment, right? It takes commitment to the industry. You have to be passionate about water. I'd say you can't, if you're interested in working in this industry as a data scientist, you have to be committed to it, because everyone's hiring data scientists, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to be committed to the cause, and you know, it's a long-term thing. It's not something that you can just do for a year and expect to get results from. So yeah, great question, Emma.
I think we have one more, Peter.
Yes, I think Lauren, right?
Lauren Kleppen, can you please ask your question? Unmute yourself.
Hello, Lauren.
All right,
are you
hi,
there?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Okay. Yep.
So I guess my question was more so, you know, if you're looking at grad school, what, in your opinion, do you think would, I guess, what direction or what, I guess, major, or I don't know what you would call it, degree, what would have the most impact in 5 to 10 years from now, in your opinion?
So Lauren, are you interested in data science, or are you interested in water, or are you interested in both?
I'm interested more so in water. Right now, I am in water conservation, looking at hydrology, hydrogeology, environmental science. But, you know, if data science is the way to go, GIS is also of interest. So I don't know, you know, what's going to have the most impact, just in your opinion, and where you see, you know, from your lens.
So I see, if you are in that field and you like being in that field, I would say that maybe you should think about environmental science or something in that vein, and then get, you know, if you're interested in working with data, you can take a Python class, for example, and maybe there's a program that has, you know, I did an environmental science program that one of my classes was a Python class. If you're asking me, like, if you're just coming at it from the standpoint of job growth, pure job growth, where can I get a job? Where can I get paid? I mean, data science is probably the way to go. It's a high demand industry. It's growing very fast, and there's more demand than there are people that are skilled to do the job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Lenisa, I think we have one last question from, actually two, Malak and Jack. So would you like to go ahead with the questions very shortly, maybe from Jack and then Malak again?
I think that's a good idea.
Hey, Aaron. Long time no see.
Hey, Jack.
So I guess I never asked you when I was with you, but what inspired you to pursue this line of work in the water industry? And then additionally, what are your favorite Python tools that you use to streamline your workflow?
Sure. So I just discovered that I was really good at it. That's the simple answer. I discovered that when I started learning Python, I found that I really enjoyed it. And I love doing it. And I found myself even doing it like outside of work hours. I was just interested in learning it, and it just came naturally. So that's how I got into it. What are my favorite tools that I use? I use Jupyter notebooks every single day. I use, if you're talking about Python libraries, I use pandas every single day. I use Flask to build APIs, and, you know, visualizations and things like that. And then, as I mentioned in the beginning, increasingly I'm trying to learn more of the web development, things like JavaScript, HTML, CSS.
Hence Flask and Django. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very cool. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Aaron. So I think, Lenisa, we can go finally with the Malak question, and then they're heading toward the closing one.
Malak has one, the final one.
Okay. I'm just want to ask why the water utility should hire a data scientist, not just to outsource the task to companies that have experience in this field.
For many of them, it may be more effective to outsource. You're absolutely right. I work for a big one in the U.S. So we're kind of in a privileged position. But yes, absolutely, there are many utilities out there for which it may be necessary or more cost effective for them to bring in an outside consultant. The only thing you have to understand is that they may or may not know anything about the water industry, right? So again, it goes back to that problem structuring. If you want to get results, you have to make sure that you're structuring your problem in the right way.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. So I think we've already come to the final minutes, and I'd like to hand over the mic to our colleague, Rudy. Here you go.
Thanks so much, Amrita and Lanesha, and especially thank you very much to Aaron. You've been a fantastic mentor, and I've learned so much in this interview with you. We really appreciate your time. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here and for this wonderful opportunity to speak with so many people from all around the world. So I feel very privileged. Thank you.
Thanks. So for those of you who maybe missed it, the recording will be available, of course, on our RiSWP webpage. We've also posted a link in the chat with a survey. So we'd like to make these sessions better and better every time. So please let us know what you thought in that survey. And then our next episode will be taking place in July. We don't have a date set just yet, but our mentor is Amanda Sakira, and she's the co-founder and CEO of a company called Vapor in Australia, and they do pipe condition assessments. So that should be very, very interesting, especially if we have any budding entrepreneurs in the audience. So thank you all very much for joining, and we'll see you in the next session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Great session.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm sad we didn't hear 3-year-old giggles, though.
Oh, yeah. So if we have another call,
yeah.
I'll make sure that I'll bring him in the room with me. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thanks, everyone. This has been a lovely session. Thank you.